Hi, this is Sean, and in this lesson we're going to look at tritone substitution, a subject that seems to confuse a lot of people and there's a lot of weirdness talked about it online. So we're going to figure out the basics of what it is, how you can use it, and how you can find them easily in your music. So first of all, what is a tritone substitution? In general, we think of a tritone substitution as a dominant chord which substitutes another one. And the easiest way to do that, I'm not sure it's the easiest, but possibly the most obvious way to do that would be to say, this is a G7. There's another chord that plays in its place, which is 1, 2, 3 tones above G, which is D flat 7. So they can play in place of each other. Okay, so let's say I had a progression like 2-5-1, D minor 7, G7 to C major. Maybe at times I'll go D minor 7 to D flat 7. That's a tritone substitution. There are different, more advanced ways of voicing it. Sometimes we do things like this. We won't get too much into those for this lesson. I mean, I showed you one there if you want to copy it. But this is more about what are they, how can we find them, and how can we get the relationships down really quick. So first of all, we should be talking about two things here. We should be talking about, number one, the interval of a tritone. Because a tritone is actually a distance between 2 points, not just two chords. So if we look at G7 as our example, there is the interval of 3 tones somewhere in this chord. And it's actually between the root 3rd, 5th, 7th. It's between the 3rd and the 7th. So let's just remove everything else. Now we're left with our 3rd and 7th. If we examine this in a bit more detail, we'll see that this is 1 whole tone, 2 whole tones, 3 whole tones above B. So F is the tritone of B. We'll see why this is important in a while. Now, we have 12 notes available on the piano, and what we've done is take 3 tones, which is 6 half steps, right? 3 whole tones, 6 half steps or semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which means we've made an incision right down the middle of the 12 notes. And because of that, if we go the other way and put the F at the bottom and the B at the top, we'll find that 1, 2, 3 tones, we get B. So F is the tritone of B, but B is also the tritone of F, just mathematically figures out, okay? We'll see why some of these things are important, so bear with me. So that's the interval of a tritone. It's an unsettled interval, isn't it? So if you look at the, say, the fifths in the key of C, this is a perfect fifth, because it's the fifth of the C major scale. This next one in the key of C is a perfect fifth, if it were in the key of D. So that's a perfect fifth. This one is a perfect fifth. This one is 2. This one is 2. This one is the first 5 notes of a major scale. This one is not, because that's the fifth of B. So when we're in the key of C and we get to here, we get the most unsettled part, which is why this gives us a G7 to settle on C. Okay, so that's what tritones do. They give us a very unsettled sound that wants to go and settle. So why was I telling you that F is the tritone of B, but B is the tritone of F? Because that means that each tritone is actually 2 tritones rolled into one, doesn't it? Because if F is the tritone of B and B is the tritone of F, then that means there can only actually be 6 tritones in total. Why? Because there are 12 notes, but each tritone is a mirror. And that means if I want all 12 tritones, then actually half of them are going to be shared, because every time I play a tritone and invert it, I've got the same tritone again. So there are actually 6 tritones in total. That said, there are 12 dominant chords. So those 6 tritones have to be shared amongst the 12 dominant chords, don't they? And the way we find the other one, this is what most people will teach, that you go 1, 2, 3 tones from the G to D flat, and then you get D flat 7. There's the F and the B, the 3rd and 7th. So we've got 2 things. Number 1, we've got the interval of a tritone, and number 2, we've got the distance of the two roots that share the same tritones. And that's how we get tritone substitution. Now, if you're thinking, how on earth am I going to do this when the music's going past? Don't worry, I've got you covered. We're going to see that. So when we want to do this quick in music, here's what we need to know. Dominants do two things. They go G7 to C, which is, let me go to C major 7 with a voicing. I've moved my 1 up to 2. That's a 5-1, right? So dominants go down a fifth to the root. That's a motion we expect from a dominant. But if we have a tritone substitution of G7, so 1 tone, 2 tones, 3 tones, D flat 7, then this dominant can also lead to C because it's a substitute of the G7. But notice that this one is only going down a half step, D flat 7 to C. So what I teach my students is that dominants go down a fifth, but they also go down a half step. And when they go down a half step, they are tritone substitutions. You've heard this ending on the blues. That sort of D flat 7 voiced in various ways. That D flat 7 to C7, for example, on the blues. It's that sound, okay? So you can find them easily by focusing on your destination. What do I mean by focusing on your destination? There's a tendency to focus on which chord have I got and can I substitute it? But if you focus on which chord do I want to get to, then you can approach it from a half step above. So if I want to get to C, I approach it from D flat 7, which is a half step above C. That's it. That will give me the tritone substitution of G7, which would normally lead to C. Okay? It's really that simple. There are, of course, some advanced considerations. So if we're doing it during the melody, then we need to make sure that the melody isn't fighting with the notes in the tritone substitution. It also works best when you're going home, when the dominant is going down a fifth to major or minor. So let's take a simple 1-6-2-5. Let's say if we're playing C major 7 to A7, D minor to G7. Let's see, if we substituted that A7, now we can either think of substituting the A7 and we're going to go 1 tone, 2 tones, 3 tones. Okay, that's E flat 7, which it is, but you haven't got time to do that in real playing. So why don't you just look at the following chord? You're trying to get to D minor 7, go a half step above and play a dominant. Play an E flat 7. It's going to get you there. Same result, two different methods. So we go C major 7, E flat 7 to D minor 7. Why not have D flat 7 going to C? So now we've got a way to substitute a simple 1-6-2-5. These are the sorts of things that happen in turnarounds. Turnarounds being these short chord progressions, normally 2 bars long, often 2 chords a bar, and they happen at the ends of sections or the ends of tunes, which means you have a bit more freedom because you haven't got as much melody constraining you. So if we had a tune that's going 1-6-2-5, I'm using a dominant on the 6, A7, and now we use the substituted version. Use a little bit of voicing on that D flat 7. I teach all that stuff, but just for now, we put the root third here, go down a whole tone, and play this augmented triad in the right hand. That's a really pretty voicing for tritone substitutions. We go into that in more depth on jazz scales, but for now, that's a quick explanation. So that gives you tons to do when you get a 1-6-2-5, you want to play some substitutions. Sometimes these will be written in anyway on a tune. So for example, the tritone substitution of C7 is 1, 2, 3 tones away. It's F sharp or G flat 7, which will go down a half step to F because C7 goes to F. A tune like This Is a Beautiful Friendship already has that substitution, G flat 7. At a more advanced level, what you can do is actually use them creatively when they're not even written. So for example, on the 1-6-2-5 chord progression we had, let's make it swing 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I want to approach the A7, I don't need to have a dominant chord written before it to substitute. So this is a bit more advanced. What I could do is say, hey, I've got a rule, haven't I, that I can approach anything from a half step above with a dominant, and that gives me a tritone substitution. So I wonder if I could just get to that A7 from a half step above. What's a half step above A? Well, it's B flat. So let me try putting a B flat 7 before the A7. Now, if we want to get into the science of why it works, it's because if I go down 3 tones, 1, 2, 3, then E7 would normally lead to A something. That's how music works, right? Dominance going down a fifth. But, as I said, we don't have to have, at a more advanced level, a dominant chord in order to substitute. We just need to know that E7 goes to A, but so does B flat 7. So we could use it anyway. Let's see if we can fit it into our 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Didn't do it that time. Let's see if I can fit it in. There it was. C, B flat, A. Alright, so it was B flat 7. So that's using them more creatively where they're not already written. We have a whole webinar on this on Jazz Skills, which is an hour long or so, about the truth about tritone substitution, where we go into a lot more depth, and you can get to the next level with tritones, knowing when to voice them one way, when to voice them another way, using something I call tritone 2/5s as well. So there is more to it, but these are the simple things that can get you to the next level with your playing. Hope you enjoy that and hope you manage to get some of this in your playing. Thanks a lot for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.